you, Kian, for being on the podcast. We're up on the 15th. I've never been up on the 15th floor.
Ooh, very nice.
I feel very honored.
Yeah.
I feel like we're in a suite. I don't know if
Yes.
this is considered the suite or not.
Not really, but
Not
it has a
really.
great view.
It does have a great view, peering down to the not the arts district. This is Blue Dome here.
Yeah.
It's amazing. You're a woman that, before we started here, you were talking about how busy you are.
Yeah.
You're doing a lot. Let's start with what you've been doing in, I don't know, the past 5 years. Like where are we at? What are you up to up here? Give me kind of a brain dump in whatever possible way you can of what you're up to.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so I've been in this role for almost 7 years now.
Okay, 7. Okay.
So I came here from the chamber. I'd been at the chamber for 6 years, split between government affairs and economic development there, and really came over to the city with this idea of building out the city's economic development infrastructure, which historically had been pretty anemic. The city just hadn't really invested in its own kind of economic development apparatus.
Okay.
So a good example, like a good data point, when I came over, I think we had about 3 staff. And I have a team of total 17 right now.
Wow.
So
Okay.
that, I think Mayor Bynum, whenever I came to work for him, he knew that the city could do more if it had the right people in place. So a good bit of the past 7 years has really been focused on how do we stand up an organizational structure that allows the city to do more.
Do more. Let's dive into that. What's the details of do more?
Yeah, it's a mix of things. I mean, what's so hard, it was funny, my dad the other day, he was like, what do you do?
Yeah.
So I pulled out my calendar and I just read a day to my dad, and he was like, okay. I think he lives in a small rural town in Kansas. He probably still didn't exactly understand. I had to go to a school board meeting that evening. And so it's a mix of things. I think my background was traditionally in kind of job creation and job growth.
Okay.
So we have a team that really focuses on that. We do that in partnership with the chamber and a lot of other partners, GKFF, the state of Oklahoma. And that is anything from working with existing employers to help them figure out if they have a barrier to expansion. This morning I was in my office and I could hear one of my team members talking about a wastewater limitation that might limit the growth of an employer in North Tulsa.
Sure.
And thinking through, how do we plan for a wastewater investment? Not a sexy thing, but it's that type of technical thing that really, I think, can limit Tulsa's growth. We also do a lot of work thinking about what are the physical places and spaces that businesses need to grow, and then trying to prepare for the sites that they'll need. So looking a lot at the airport and out in East Tulsa, and then thinking about the infrastructure that's needed. So that's kind of one book of business.
Sure.
We have another team that really works with our kind of public finance tools. So they do a lot of work with incentives, public incentives.
Cool. Yeah.
So if you think about, we have a goal, and then if there's a financial gap or some sort of incentive that needs to be in place to make that goal happen, they are the team that works alongside. It could be, we are up here on the 15th floor.
I love it. Yeah.
Because you can see a lot of the work that we're doing. So I'm looking across to the Arts District at what is the Western Supply Project. Yep. That's a project that our team worked alongside the George Kaiser Family Foundation on to use tax increment finance.
Yeah. Sure.
So do a lot of work with public finance tools. And then we have another team that is really working, it's our community development team. And they are really at the ground level, working with neighborhoods, trying to figure out how do we make sure that as we're trying to do this work within the broader city, both from a jobs perspective and a development perspective, that it translates into true benefits for the people that live in neighborhoods, particularly neighborhoods that have been left behind in the city's history.
7 years just doing amazing work. I love Western Supply. We're starting to get to know Chino way better.
Yeah.
And Josh Allen, I believe, so we were on a call with him, just kind of learning more, sharing a little bit more of the vision. Super cool stuff going.
Yeah.
7 years, you've seen a lot. Obviously, you've done a lot.
Yeah.
What's that feather in the cap? What's that badge of honor project? You're man, we did that. Super excited about that.
it's hard to choose one. I would maybe point to two or three. I say that's like, how many? I mean, right now, I think the work that we're doing with what we call Kirkpatrick Heights Greenwood and the Kirkpatrick Heights Greenwood Master Plan. So what most people in Tulsa know as the former UCAT property, all of the land around OSU Tulsa, that has just sat there vacant and fallow for decades.
Right.
Was taken through the process of eminent domain. And then, there was this big vision for a university, and it never happened. So our organization manages the legacy assets of the Urban Renewal Authority, the Tulsa Development Authority. We were able to regain control of that property in 2017, 2018. Okay. But rather than just...
And how many acres are there? Because there's quite a bit of land over there.
Yeah, it's between... So TDA owns the majority of it, but between the city and TDA's land holdings, it's about 56 acres total.
That's a lot,
It's a big chunk of land. The most developable portion of it is to the west of MLK and north of 244.
Yep.
When we got that land back, our commitment, and I think the mayor's commitment, was that we weren't just going to turn it around and put it out to RFP to the highest bidder, that it really represented an opportunity for the city to say, this is, one, it's special land, it is the historic Greenwood District, and we have the chance to really think about how it can really reshape the economic opportunity for North Tulsans, Black Tulsans, for the broader kind of Greenwood community.
Right.
So we spent a year and a half putting together a master plan. We spent all of last year working with a group of national kind of technical assistance providers to work alongside a group of about 30 community leaders to help figure out, we committed to a community-led governance model, but didn't really have an idea of what that meant. And so there were ideas around community land trust, community development corporations. We worked with this group of community leaders last year and really landed on the governance model being a CDC, a community development corporation, which is what we're working on now. We're working to stand up a CDC. So in the terms of things that have the opportunity to just truly transform Tulsa and really reshape the way that we think about economic development, I'm very proud of that. I can't take credit. I mean, team members, our community development team has just been phenomenal. Community leaders like Ashley Phillipson, who runs Impact Tulsa, Lana Turner Addison, they've been the co-chairs of this work for so long. And then I think about neighborhood leaders like Eugene Harris, who just it's been so fun to work alongside people and see them grow and see them understand and learn about other neighborhood organizations nationally and think they're okay, I see what you did there. I'm going to take this piece and bring it back to Tulsa. So
I love it.
There are a few other things. They're more technical and super nerdy, but that one, we'll go with that one for now.
I love that. Are you from Kansas? Is it you mentioned that your family was from. Let's dive into childhood for a little bit.
Yeah, so I'm not from Kansas, but my mom and dad grew up in small rural Kansas, Anthony, Kansas.
Kansas. Where's Anthony? Give me the closest metropolitan.
It is an hour due north of Enid, essentially.
Okay, all right.
Just right across the state line, 12 miles north of the state line.
Okay.
I grew up in Okarche, Oklahoma.
Still don't know where that's at.
Which is, let's say, an hour due south of Enid. Enid is just going to be our reference point. Okarche is 45 minutes away from Oklahoma City. It's not that, but it is still population 1,200.
How big was your high school class when you graduated?
It was one of the bigger ones.
Okay.
It was 42.
Okay.
My husband is from Freedom, Oklahoma.
Okay.
If you know where Alva and Woodward are.
I do know.
It is
Panhandle area.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's in between-ish.
Okay.
Alva and Woodward. He graduated with 8 people.
Wow.
So, yes. Yeah.
Wow. So small town, small high school. Did you, we're there, we're going to dive in. I love this. In high school, Were you student council? Were you part of everything? Like, tell me, what were the high school days look like for Cheyenne?
I was the valedictorian. I was the smart nerd, so I did speech and debate. I'm tall, obviously. I'm like 5'9". I've been this tall since like 6th grade.
Okay.
And Okarchi is a really big like women's basketball school. So everybody
you were a
thought, no, I was
you
not.
were.
Everybody thought I was. Everybody would see me. They're like, "Oh, you're from Okarchi. You must be like the superstar." I'm like, yeah. No. My husband, if he sees me with a basketball in my hands, he's just like,
don't
put it down.
Yeah.
Like, don't. Nobody wants to see your form.
So not athletic.
Not athletic.
Okay.
No. I was the nerd.
Okay.
I was speech and debate, quiz bowl.
Okay.
Mock trial.
Super smart.
Yeah. All the boring nerdy things.
Okay.
Yes.
Part of student council.
Yeah.
What did you like? Give me more. Like you were the nerd, but you were like the cool nerd.
Yeah. I mean, I think I was the cool nerd. I
Yeah.
mean, it was like for the most part, when it's a small town.
Yeah.
I mean, Okarchi's an interesting town because it's very much like there were a few families that founded the town, and so if you don't have like one of the like 5 or 6 last names, which are all German. Then you're kind of like, you have it. It's like but I think, I had great friends. I had a good high school experience. My parents were mostly small business owners throughout my childhood.
Yeah.
And then,
were you helping? What did they do? And did you help out as a kiddo?
So initially they owned and ran a trucking company.
Okay.
And then they sold
like
that.
their own trucking company,
Yes.
owning the fleet.
Yes. Yeah.
Hired the drivers, like all of that.
Yes.
How many trucks? Let's get there. Like,
I
how many trucks did they at one point?
My mom was probably going to listen to this and tell me I was, but I think at one point they owned like 10 trucks.
Okay.
So
all
it was like a decently
decent
sized, but they sold
regional, like national.
They hauled stuff out to California, and then I think they hauled wine back from California to
was there
Oklahoma,
smuggling
if I'm
involved?
right. I don't think there was
Okay.
smuggling involved. These are maybe we're like getting into potentially.
No, we could drop it. That's as far as we
Cayenne
got.
learns
Yeah.
her parents were involved in
Yeah.
illegal activity.
I love it.
I do remember, like, my parents were, they had a bag, like, they were one of the first people in Okarchi to have, like, a cell phone. They had this bag phone. And then we also had a fax machine. Like, we were one of the first people in Okarchi to have Santa faxed us. I remember thinking, like, I went to school and was like,
what?
Guess.
Santa fax.
Guess what? Santa faxed us.
Straight from the North Pole.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. That's funny. So what did you do? Were you helping out in the trucking? Like, what did you?
I mean, I was pretty young when they owned the trucking
Okay.
company, and then so they sold that, and then my dad designed, and so we had horses. We lived on 26 acres, and my dad designed and built what's called a rotary harrow. It like tills up dirt in an arena.
Okay.
Things I doubt you were expecting
we're
to
diving
talk
into
about.
things like I'm completely lost, but
Yes,
we're
so he
you
did
take
that.
like drag it behind a tractor or
Yes,
something.
yeah.
Okay.
So it was like a
Like
circular.
he's a
piece
welder. Like he's a craftsman when it comes to metal.
Yeah, he
and-
like designed it and like it. Yes, it was not like PTO driven. So it was like all sorts of like geometry and physics and stuff to make it work.
Wow. So manufacturing of this product?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
So they designed and built it, and then we would go with them to like shows, like horse shows mostly, and they would sell sell it to other people.
Specifically
who
like for
owned horses.
rodeo.
Yes,
or
yeah.
for-
Like
okay.
if you're like a big horse owner, like you generally have an arena, and you need to like keep the dirt tilled up, all the things that you're learning today.
I love it.
But then I also like I after my parents did that, my parents got divorced, and then I've always been super hardworking. I think my first like real job was when I was 14 mowing lawns.
Wow.
And then when I was
Landscaping.
15, I went to work for the electric cooperative and worked for the electric cooperative all throughout college. I would come back and I would work nights and weekends, and during the summertime would pick
You were
up
a
shifts.
hustler.
And yes, yeah.
When I first heard the 14-year-old Cayenne lawn company or whatever, was it just you with a lawnmower and a weed eater?
It was, so my mom at the time managed 2 Love's country stores in Kingfisher, which is just north of Okarchi. And I would mow the like lots around them.
Cool.
So I think I got paid $40, which for a 14-year-old was like that was a pretty good, like I could buy, I think I desperately wanted a pair of Skechers and Doc Martens.
Okay.
I'm sure you can
Okay.
relate.
So I'm 40 years old and I'm
Yes.
trying to put myself, how old are you if you don't mind me asking?
38.
38. Okay. So
Yes, yeah.
we're close enough. My
Yeah.
sister, we grew up very not of wealth, let's put it that
Yeah,
way.
yeah.
And I remember my older sister, 3 years older than me, but begging my mom for Doc Martens.
Yeah.
And at the time, obviously, no money. And back in the day, there was like these old Kohl's stores in strip malls, like little Kohl's. I don't know. And I remember going in there in the day that it was just interesting to see her finally being able to get Doc Martens. So
Yeah.
I can kind of sympathize a little bit there. So
The only reason
Skechers and
I
Doc
got them
Martens.
was because I had a job. Like
Yeah.
my mom was like, if you want those purple Docs.
Purple.
Yes.
Were they like the calf? Or they like halfway up?
They were like
Okay,
the.
they're cool.
Yes, yeah.
How often did you strut your Doc Martens?
I think I like wore them out. I mean, I was obsessed with them. I desperately wanted them.
Do you still have Doc Martens today?
I don't.
They're back.
Yeah, I know.
They're back. I
I
see
look
them
at I'm like,
everywhere.
yes,
The
yeah.
big, thick, the yellow
Yes.
lacing
Yeah.
and everything.
Yeah, they're all the rage
I'm
right
glad
now.
we went there. That was really fun. So this hustling mentality, Kian, whenever you grew up, it sounds like between your dad and your mom, it really came down to
Yeah.
that's how you were raised.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm assuming like weekends as an entrepreneurial type of father figure when you were starting, like that's what you just 24/7.
Yeah, yeah.
Was that just something, I guess it's maybe a little bit both DNA and just how you were raised at the time of just like the hustle and the go and from hustling here with starting with mowing lawns and on to the next thing. And like, it was just a thing that.
Yeah, I mean, I think
You
for me, and I'm the middle child. I have two sisters. I think for all of us, like it was just the expectation. And my parents, they were small business owners, but they weren't necessarily successful small business owners in the long run. I mean, there were a lot of financially challenging times, and so I think there was just this assumption that like you and my parents had been raised this way as well. Like you just like. You don't get to sit around and loaf around. Like you need, if you want things, if you want a car, if you want a cell phone. I really wanted that Nokia and all of the awesome faceplates.
Yep.
Which now people may not know what those places. We're just gonna
fully
go
aware.
down the full rabbit hole.
Yeah.
You got to find a way to pay for it yourself, and so it's just kind of like it was a part of who I was. From the start.
I find that a lot of the times that when we were talking to people, influential people in Tulsa, and more of the go-getters, I definitely throw you in that category. A lot of it is innate. A lot of it is more of a DNA thing. And then others, they had no other choice. As if they wanted to go anywhere, obviously it wasn't handed. It was earned. It was something that you had to hustle to get. So mowing lawns. What was that next job that you had mentioned?
I worked at the
at 15
electric
years
cooperative.
Old? Electric cooperative.
And then I worked at the grain elevator during harvest and graded grain. So, which is like, it's a harvest, obviously, like in any rural community, wheat harvest in this case, like is a super intense, like you got to get the wheat in, you got to get the crop in before it goes bad. And so you would usually get to work around 7 or 8 in the morning, and then they could, like, you stay there as long as they could cut wheat, which could be anywhere from like midnight to 2 a.m. And you just like, you're working all day long, and you make like as a kid, you make overtime pay, which is awesome, but it definitely like you have to learn to like push through, and it definitely teaches you a humbling work ethic.
You're obviously not afraid to get dirty. You're doing these very physical, labor-intensive jobs. It kind of sounds like the country girl type of mentality. Sorry to kind of put that out there, but I'm like, man, she's getting after it. She's doing these things. That's super cool. Let's talk about like college days.
Yeah.
Maybe after high school, you graduated 42 students deep, and then off to college right away, or okay, where'd you go?
I went to the University of Oklahoma. It was the only college I applied for. I went in with a poli-sci major and never changed my major, and I loved OU. I thought it was amazing. I had a great experience. I worked at the honors college all throughout, so I continued my like nerddom
Sure.
throughout my college career. And it just, I think, like, always knew that I wanted to be in some level of public service. And luckily, when I was a senior, I got a scholarship through Rotary International, and then went over to Scotland and did my master's degree at the University of Edinburgh in public policy. So
that's really cool.
Yeah.
So you really did nerd out.
I did, yes. Yeah.
You said you wanted to, at some capacity, be in public, influential in the public sphere, let's call it. Did you have any idea at that time kind of the lane that you were leaning towards, or what you really enjoyed doing?
I mean, my undergrad was political science, and my master's was public policy. I really enjoyed public policy. I graduated at a really unfortunate time with my master's degree, 2009. We moved back to Oklahoma. And
who's we? Were you married
my
at the
husband
time?
and I, yeah. So my husband, we got married a week and a half before we moved to Scotland.
Okay. Met at college, met at OU?
Met my senior year of high school. So we have been together for over 20 years.
When did you guys get married? How long were you together? We're going to go late relationship. We're going to take a little side trail because I'm all into it right now.
We got married in 2018. Don't tell me. You're going to have to edit this out. My husband's going to realize that I just forgot when we got married. Yeah, we got married. No, that's not right. We're not 2018, 2008.
2018, I was like, geez,
that?
Louise,
Now
you guys
I'm
were,
thinking,
yeah.
Now I'm going to get
2008,
this
2008.
I think, yes.
Okay.
Yes, I graduated from OU in 2000.
His family moved to your town.
No, so he's 3 years older, 3 years-ish older than me. He graduated from Freedom. We met, his best friend and college roommate dated my little sister.
Okay.
He loves to tell the story. The first time he had seen me or met me and thought I was really annoying. I was like, yeah, not her. And then I guess changed his mind.
And then
later.
You did work. And,
we did work. We have a child. We love each other. We are happy.
Okay.
I do not annoy him for the most part, I think. So.
And he has obviously been a big support.
Yes.
To you and your ventures. What does he do? What does your husband do?
Yeah, he's a graphic designer.
Okay, cool.
He works just one floor below us.
Wow,
So
how's that?
It's honestly, we don't see each other super often because
How often do you lunches together?
Probably not often enough. We have different eating habits too. I eat on time. He never eats on time.
Okay. I already. Very creative. You're very much the opposite.
Yes.
Analytical, the two different brains, the right and the left.
What's funny is he is actually he's a designer, but he's probably more analytical than I am.
Okay.
Yes, he is hyper analytical. But yeah, we just have different schedules when it comes to during the day. But it's nice for him to be down there, and whenever we can have lunch together. And he's the city's graphic designer, has been the city's graphic designer for 14 years.
That's kind of cool. Yeah. Obviously, he enjoys it if he's been around that long.
Yeah. We try not to. It can be hard because we both work essentially for the same entity. Sure. Sometimes it's fun when silly things happen and you need to laugh. You can mutually laugh about those things. Other times it's just no, we are not talking. We're not talking about.
I'm sure what's coming to mind right now. Part of the conversation I had with Matt Pinnell at the Capitol was all the things that he was pretty instrumental on with the branding side of things. We talked about what was the bird, the license plate, the scissor tail,
the Twitter bird,
and that's what he called it. That's exactly what he called it. And then the seal or the little colorful wheel.
Yes.
I'm sure your husband had words for. You don't have to say exactly what his thoughts were. But this is full circle now. I feel very, very completed here.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So you got your master's overseas, came back. You came back to Oklahoma.
Yes. Yeah.
Did you come back to Tulsa?
Yeah.
You wanted a bigger city at that point in time.
Yeah, our family all lives in Oklahoma, but mostly Northwest Oklahoma and Oklahoma City. So we knew we wanted to be closer to them, but we didn't want to be too close because we'd been 7 time zones away from them. So he got the job here in Tulsa, and neither of us had really spent much time here. We didn't have a whole lot I think I'd been to Tulsa once. Most people on the western side of the state, you just don't
just stay put?
Yeah,
Or?
it's like Oklahoma City is the city. Like, I don't know if you know many people
Sure.
from
Sure.
they just say, I'm going to the city.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
there's no
Yep.
need to venture over
Too much
to
more.
Tulsa.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we landed here and have just, I think, we have loved it. When I mentioned, when I graduated 2009, height of the recession, I'd been like, I gave the commencement address at OU, and I had, gotten a full ride scholarship to do my master's, and then I graduate into this recession, and it's like I couldn't get a job at all.
Oh, yeah.
And I ended up, I took a job with the city of Owasso. I was an admin assistant for the city manager.
Oh, geez.
Which is a little bit of a, it was, I think I had like high aspirations and a big, like, I thought I was pretty talented.
Yeah. And then you got landed this. And
yeah. But it was, at the time, Rodney Ray was the city manager, and I am still great friends with the majority of the people who I worked with at the city of Owasso. And it was just a team of people who really loved what they were doing. And I think I tried to, like, I'm a hustler, so I tried to make the most out of the opportunity that I had in that role. So it was a humbling experience in that I had to realize and remind myself that, like, doesn't matter like where you're at, you got to figure out how to make it work and take advantage of it, and always try to like find those little cracks in those places and spaces where you can help based upon.
So your whole goal was, hey, this might not be the best position. I feel like this is maybe a little bit of a demotion to where I think I should be. I'm here. Let's make the best of it.
Yeah. I mean, we all spend way too much time in our like jobs on a daily basis to be miserable. And I've never been somebody who just wants to punch the clock. So yeah, I absolutely thought like I was in the like general area where I wanted to be. I may not have been in the role that I had like aspirationally thought I would land in when I graduated from college, but I knew it was still a place where I could have an impact.
So how long were you in that position of maybe a little bit of frustration, but then after a while you're like, we're going to make the best of it?
I mean, I'm trying to. I was at the city of Owasso for 2 years in total, and I think I pretty rapidly was like, okay, I'm not just going to answer phones. Like, I can find, like, I
can do more here.
Yes, like I can absolutely make more of this and
I
learn the most I can about. Yes, well, and I think it's really helpful. Like, you understand how governments function. You learn a little bit about municipal budgeting. You understand city ordinances, and you learn how how the structure of governments like really work and how things move through governments. And
so it's probably a really good learning experience.
Absolutely.
First time in a public position like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. That's really cool. We're going to bounce back to the city.
Okay.
I just saw something, I think it was on TikTok the other day. You're from the city. You might know this. They're supposedly building the biggest building in America. It was just approved. Have you seen this? Obviously. Obviously. What is going on with this so-called biggest building in America? It looks like, is it in brick? Like, where exactly is it?
Yeah.
Because as soon as I came across this, I'm like, this isn't right.
Yeah.
No, wait. They just secured funding for this thing? What is going on? What is happening in the state of Oklahoma?
I mean, I don't know the developer.
Okay.
From what I probably read the same Oklahoman article that you read earlier this week. The developer clearly has a talent for putting out a great narrative about that project.
Okay. Is it going to turn out to be like a 3-story building? And just
I think there are portions of it. It's interesting. Like if you pay attention to the nuance of this or of how they're messaging the project, it's like 3 parts.
Okay.
And the first 2 parts are smaller and I think much more like normal to what we're used to seeing in the Oklahoma City and Tulsa markets.
Got it.
And so what they have messaged is that we will build those 2 parts first, and if the lease up goes well, they stabilize, then we will build the tower.
Here we're going. We're doing this thing.
I mean, if you know anything about like the office vacancy rates in Oklahoma City, although they're saying that it's like hotel, luxury, like condos, apartments that would be in that tower, I'm super skeptical based upon what I know about like lease rates, purchase rates, that the economics are there
I
for
feel
a
like
tower
I'm sitting
of
with a
this
pro.
size.
Like if anyone would know, that's why I'm bringing this up. I'm like, she's going to know.
Yeah, I mean, you want to you want people to be aspirational, ambitious. Like you want to see big projects built.
Right.
I think the developer has a real talent for telling a story, and he's using the story to, make a compelling case for big things.
Right.
But I think the odds that it gets scaled back are probably pretty good.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
You've obviously had a lot of stories to tell. A lot of exciting things, a lot of exciting announcements, that sort of stuff. And let's go to the place of not great feedback. Let's go to the place of maybe people almost attacking, whether it's the mayor, whether it's you directly.
Yeah.
Can you share some of those moments of like, well, you don't understand, or it's not maybe the full story, or like bits of like how you felt, just like, man, being in public office, am I really in the right place? You know what I'm saying? And like, am I doing this? Like, here we are.
Yeah. I think probably the most like notable of those would be our work with the Evans Fin 2 project, which it's a tough site. It is a former brownfield site. It's been cleaned up. It has some like really tough connection issues. It's kind of isolated. It doesn't have great ingress and egress. But it's in the Greenwood district. You've got the BMX facility just to the north. There's opportunities in the long run, but it's a challenging site. And we worked to design a really robust public engagement process around that project. And
was that a bad idea?
No, I don't think it was a bad idea. I think as we've like looked back on how we approached that project from the start, there were, I think, there's a desire to make sure that small developers, particularly developers who have not had a shot at big development opportunities, and even like within that, like especially local Black developers, have an opportunity to experience the benefits from developing that site. And it is a big site, and it is a hairy site. And so we RFP'd it out as one single lot. When you have a site of that magnitude, it inherently requires a level of experience and expertise and financial backing. And so I think as we've looked back on it in retrospect, and we think splitting it up or finding ways to like structurally approach it so that you can, like, in the nature of how you're doing the development, it makes it easier for smaller developers to have a piece of their own or to partner with more experienced developers. And I think about, thinking about one community meeting in particular, there's been two probably. And so much of what I try to remind myself, like, they're frustrated, they're angry because so many promises have been made along the way. And I think it's really hard to feel like yet another promise has been broken. And, it's tough when, part of why deals fall apart. I can think of several others downtown and across Tulsa that have fallen apart right now because of just basic, like, interest rates. Super boring thing, like interest rate.
But it affects a lot,
absolutely. And then you pair that with dramatically increased construction costs, and it makes it really hard for projects to pencil. But the average person, I think it's, especially when you've been let down time after time by economic development leaders and the city and organizations like the one that I run, it's really hard to identify or to like differentiate as to why this might be different. And so I think that's the balancing act of being in this role. And I mentioned, the project I'm most proud of being our work in Kirkpatrick Heights Greenwood. Last year, we worked with this community working group, and the first few times that we met they were rough.
Just fiery.
Yeah, I mean, it just is. When you have decades and decades of pain that you're trying to overcome, and figuring out like how do you, like when you have no basis for trust, how do you even start to like let like the little like twinkles of trust form? There were times last year when our team just thought, we are not sure if we'll get there. And I'm happy to say, like, and it took a lot of hard work, and I think a lot of it is like being human and for people to see like yes, I am Kian. I represent an institution, multiple institutions that have done incredible harm to people.
Unfortunately, yeah.
But I am also like Kian, who grew up in Okarchi and who has this like own personal history, and I like finding and taking the time. And I think that's the other hard part in this work, is that people oftentimes like they want things to happen quickly, but it takes some time to build those trust and relationships. So I feel like that was a super long-winded answer.
After, my mind's immediately going to, okay, Kian, you're a part of this. Hometown or small town girl. Now you're part of something much bigger.
Yeah.
Now maybe some fingers are being pointed, some frustration, and you're like, I'm just a part of this. How do you go home and decompress after these very stressful, very like heavy meetings?
Yeah. I started doing yoga 2 years ago. Yoga really helps. Okay. You also just have to you just have to realize you can't solve it all immediately, and you kind of have to find ways to laugh. Like the one way that I found to laugh was, so at one of the meetings for Evans FinTube, it was like a mix of in-person and virtual. And for some reason...
You imagine everyone naked or something like that.
No, for some reason. So I'm up there speaking, and they had like the camera on me, and so that the people virtually could see my face when I was talking. And then they went into the Q&A period, and they didn't take it off. And so there's a point where people were vociferously telling me and our team their opinion. And so there's me and my face, and then my giant head, like 40 by 40
just huge
head in the background. And I get home from the public meeting, and then I remember my mother-in-law was there. We're like watching the news. I'm like eating because I hadn't eaten yet. And I see the news story, and I'm like, oh my God. Why did my team not take my giant head off? Like, why is my giant head, like, there's my little head and my giant head. You have to laugh. Like, you just, and so that's now, like, and
were you making faces like your
I was not. No, I
was,
but it was just like, oh my gosh, how did our team not realize that they should, like, put up a different screen so that Kian's giant face, while she's getting yelled at, was not on the screen behind her. So you have to laugh. Like you have to find the things.
So yoga, finding laughter in the middle of the fray.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, wow. Something that Julio said in the last podcast was meditation. Do you meditate at all? He meditates in the morning.
I mean, I find yoga to probably be like the closest form of like a really good yoga class, because you really learn to breathe, and you learn to just kind of like let loose of the things that you're holding on to. And we have if we're going into a tough meeting, like our team will say like, okay, box breath. Like learn to in for 4, in for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, hold for 4, which is a really
you're up there teaching
this
like, hey, it's gonna be a rough one.
When I first started doing yoga, they're like, we can see you like dropping into your
Zen.
Yes.
Wow. Do you like hot yoga?
I do, yeah. I go to Salt in Utica Square.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I was doing hot yoga there for a while. I find it very relaxing in a weird way, because you're just so taxed and you feel so good afterwards, that euphoria. So I was a big fan, like, was it 98 degrees, 99, whatever it is. At the time it was Genesis now. But anyways, over there, and I really enjoyed it. And it was just sloppy, like sweaty, and it just, in a weird way, it was really fun.
Yeah.
So I could.
I love it.
It's just part of like the detox. That's I guess what I'm trying to say is the detox of sweating it out. It makes
Yeah.
it a lot of fun. You have one member. There's three of you, one kiddo.
Yes.
He's 6 years old.
Uh-huh.
What is he like? Is he more like you? Is he more like your husband? What side of the brain? Is he a hard worker already? Are you seeing some signs? Public office all the way? Like
He's
what's
an only
going?
child, so he's not a hard worker. He thinks my husband and I are there to serve his every need. I think he's probably a mix of both of us. Like, he looks a lot like me,
Okay.
except he has these like beautiful blonde curls. His hair is like, we can't go out without somebody like trying to touch his hair or tell us how much they love his hair, or like literally like cashiers will like buy him candy at the grocery store at the Home Depot because they're just like, he's so adorable. So we're like trying to be like, get it, like tame his little ego down because he's just so cute. But he's like, it's interesting, like you have 4 kids, you see them going through like these different phases, and you see them struggling with things and like feeling the emotions. And he, like right now, he loves to make people laugh, which I think gets him into a little bit of trouble at school because he's constantly trying to like, be a bit of the entertainer. So, which is probably more like on my side of like the personality spectrum, but then he does have like a deep level of anxiety about some things. So I think that's probably more of like on my husband's side of things. Like, right, he has this Saturday is swim lessons, and he has to swim without his goggles, which he's just like insanely anxious
Terrified
about.
Oh,
so
yeah.
we promised him a new set of Pokemon cards. And I bought the Pokemon cards, and he knows I have the Pokemon cards. But every night, he's like, Mom, are the Pokemons, are they in this area of
Am I
the
hot?
house?
Am I cold? Am I warm?
But he is just, it's so fun having
Yeah.
a kid, and you get to see them like become their own little human being, and you look back on videos of them, and you see like who they were, like the little nuggets of it from the start. And,
Sure.
I think part of what I worry about the most right now is just like making sure that in my career choices and how I use my time, that I can be present for him. Like when he's going through these like unique moments of change in his life, and where he really like needs his parents. And so
this is maybe a little bit of a transition here. How has being a public servant helped you or hurt you be a better mom, being a better parent?
I think especially in my work, and like what the ultimate goal is, like I think about like how the work that I do now, if I don't do it right, it means that my son, like, he has less opportunity if he stays here. I look at everything like happening and the struggles that our public school system has, and just like my son is incredibly lucky to have 2 parents who have great jobs and a really stable family. And I know there's a lot of students in his class and in his school and across the district that just don't have that. So I think having a son or having a child, like, it makes me hyper conscientious of the fact that like this work is not just like, I've always said this, and the mayor says as well, like it's not just about like the ribbon cutting or like the article in the paper. Like, it is about the lives of people. It is about the making sure that single moms or working families can, like, they have an economically successful future.
Sure.
And that their children aren't growing up in poverty, and that they have the ability to succeed. So, I think like on the converse of that, like what's made it difficult, both my husband and I, we worked for the city during COVID, and him in communications. So communicating about COVID was just a lot. And then me obviously like trying to figure out like how do we make sure that this doesn't like destroy our economic future.
Right.
And I'm lucky that he was so young. If he had been older, and thank God he wasn't in school yet, because I don't know how I would have survived. But this job is really like, it's pretty consuming. So I think that's a challenge for him, because he doesn't know me. Like, I am regularly on the couch in the living room with my laptop out late at night, or I have my phone, or I'm giving him a bath and I don't hear what he's saying because I've got work on my mind. So that's a challenge.
Disconnecting. I find that always to be a struggle for myself.
Yeah.
And dropping something to be present. Do you struggle with that?
Yes.
How do you overcome that? When you notice that, okay, this is a problem, or not now, or you know what I'm saying? Like when is enough?
I don't think I have learned how to do that quite yet. I mean, I think yoga really did help me in like figuring out how to get my brain to shut off and to relax and to let go of things. And I don't think I will ever be the person who just like, clocks in at 8 and out at 5 and, leave everything, at the office door. I don't think that will ever be me, but it's definitely, I think, in my best interest, the best interest of my family, that I figure out a few more strategies to like not have it be in my mind every waking hour.
Yeah, for me, it's definitely a constant struggle. 7 years.
Yes.
You've been here working hard. What are you doing in the future? Where are you going? What's the next little bit of your life look like?
Yeah, so I don't know yet. I mean, you probably saw I announced a couple weeks ago my intent to transition out of this role. It's a terrifying decision to make. I've always been a firm believer that people like they have a certain set of skills for different like phases of an organization, and I've never wanted to like be the person who outlived and didn't realize it in particular, realize that they had outlived their best set of skills. And I don't think that's necessarily where I've been at or where I am at, but I have like been super conscientious in realizing that like the skills that I think are needed for this next phase of organizational success for PartnerTulsa, they're ones that take more energy out of me to use them at the like level that I expect of myself. And so made this like conscientious, I think, decision that I thought it was time for like to look for the next me, that person who really, they get like their deepest passion and joy from that set of skills. And which I think is, it's hard when you're effectively the founder of an organization and people kind of, your names are synonymous. But I've been intentional in saying, okay, I have a bit of time. My plan is to be in the role through the end of May, which gives me space to kind of transition some projects and to work with the team and to make sure that they're prepared and get a search started.
You just feel like you're at a place of, you know what, I'm really happy with what I've done here, but it's on to the next type of feeling. Or just like what you're talking about, the skill set is just like, I don't know if I really want to do this too much longer.
And it's I think too, like part of my strategy, like this job is all consuming. It has been hard for me to like create the space in my brain to think intentionally about what I want to do next, and to make sure that I wasn't going to just jump from like one thing on to the next without like really having the chance to assess like, okay, is this what brings me joy? Is this where I can have the most impact? And so being able to announce like allowed me to release some of that and to start, I feel like only in the past week or two have I finally started to like see the like little bits of room in my brain start opening up. And which is like I like to know, I like to have a plan. It's also hard, I think, to make an announcement like this, like in a very public way. Like I don't get to just make the decision and then like kind of quietly
just like, okay, see you later.
No, it's like,
so you're a
the
rock
world
star.
wants to know what you're doing.
You're a rock star. Are you already getting job offers?
I mean,
come on. Yes is the right answer.
I really am trying to. It's 7 year, and particularly when like 2 years of that was COVID, is just like, it is a lot. And so I am trying to be really consistent in saying like, I need,
I get
I
it.
need it. And it's hard, it's so funny to try, like, in a world where like everybody is hyper conscientious about your career and your career defines you, and especially when you're in a more public role, it is a really weird feeling to say, I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah.
I have a friend of mine, Jeff Stava, who
Yeah.
is at the George Kaiser Family Foundation. We had breakfast like a week after I made the announcement, and he looks at me and goes, "You don't do this. Like, this is not, Kian Kamas doesn't do this."
That's
and I was like,
funny.
I did it. I can't take it back now.
So as we close here, any inclination of where you might, like, obviously you might have like part of a project, there were certain things that like stuck out to you, like, ooh, maybe that's my next step. Is there like certain skill sets that you want to develop? Is there like any sort of like maybe of an inkling of understanding of where you might head?
I think there's like I said, there's like pockets of space in my brain that are starting to I'll start to, or I'll feel like that, moment of excitement, like when I'm thinking about something. But I don't what I wrote down in a notebook a couple of weeks ago, like part of what I've loved about the past 7 years is that I think I got to do things that very likely wouldn't have happened if I weren't here. And so I would like to also be in a role where I'm doing something or I'm working in a space where, but for me being there, something might not happen. So, I want to continue to have an impact. I think some skills that I've developed over the past decade that are pretty unique. And so, but I don't know, there's like some little sparkles of ideas, but nothing certain yet.
I love it. Thank you so much
You're
for being
welcome.
on here. I had a great time conversing and literally gazing upon Tulsa.
Yes,
This has been enjoyable for multiple reasons.
Yes.
Thank you again.
You're very welcome.